The story begins in the summer of 2021 at New Life Baptist Church, one of Chicago's largest African-American congregations, located in the heart of the South Side. The church's gleaming facade and state-of-the-art facilities stood as a testament to its prosperity under the leadership of Pastor Jerome Mitchell. At 45, Pastor Mitchell cut an impressive figure. Tall, athletic, with a winning smile that had graced countless local television appearances and charity events. His sermons packed the 3,000-seat sanctuary every Sunday. His marriage to Diane Mitchell, a prominent real estate developer, was held up as a model of black excellence. But behind the polished exterior lurked darkness. Melissa Jackson began working as Pastor Mitch's executive assistant in January 2021. At the age of 32, she was smart, capable, and carried a devastating secret. She had been HIV positive since a relationship in her mid-20s with a man who knew his status, but did not disclose it. The moment I met Pastor Mitchell, something felt off, Melissa later told investigators. The way he looked at me, like I was something to consume, but I needed this job. My mother was sick, bills were piling up, and the pay was too good to walk away from. The first inappropriate comment started subtly. "That dress looks nice on you, Sister Jackson," he'd say. "You should wear your hair down more often. Has anyone ever told you what beautiful eyes you have?" Melissa tried to deflect. "Thank you, Pastor. I should get back to those donation reports." But the comments escalated to accidental touching. Hand on her lower back, fingers brushing her arm, standing too close while reviewing documents. By March, he found reasons to keep her late. "Sister Jackson, I need help preparing Sunday's sermon. Could you organize these counseling files? No one will disturb us at this hour." One evening, he closed his office door. "Melissa, I think we both feel this connection. God brought you here for a reason." She backed away. "Pastor Mitchell, you're married. This is not right." "The heart wants what it wants," he replied. "Haven't you felt it too?" "Have to go," she said. That's when he grabbed her arm. "Think carefully about your next move. A lot of people would love this position. It would be a shame when your performance reviews started to suffer." Melissa pulled away, heart pounding. She had responsibilities. Her mother's medical bills, her rent, her own HIV medications, which insurance barely covered. The next day, she requested a transfer to the church's administrative office. Denied. She asked to adjust her hours to avoid late nights. Denied. She started documenting every interaction, saving texts, recording conversations when possible. In April, Pastor Mitchell called her into his office. "I'm concerned about your attitude lately. Maybe this isn't the right fit anymore." "Are you firing me?" she asked. "Let's call it a mutual parting unless." The implication hung heavy in the air. Melissa left in tears. That night, she stared at her HIV medication bottle, a plan forming, a terrible, vengeful plan. The next day, she called Pastor Mitchell. "I'm sorry about yesterday. You're right, there is a connection. Maybe we could talk about it over dinner." His eager response made her stomach turn. "I knew you'd come around. I have a discreet place in mind." As she hung up, Melissa whispered, "God forgive me." The restaurant was in Henston, far from her usual circles. Pastor Mitchell had reserved a private booth under the name James Smith. Melissa arrived wearing the red dress he'd once complimented her on, her heart heavy with purpose. "You look stunning," he said, eyes traveling over her in a way that made her skin crawl. Over wine. He shouldn't have been drinking as a Baptist minister. He laid out his rules: no communication through church channels. Never be seen together in public near the church. If anyone asks, she was rehired as a remote consultant. His wife was not to be mentioned. "I have a reputation to protect," he explained. "This stays between us." Melissa nodded, thinking of the dictaphone in her purse. "Of course. Discretion is important to me too." The affair began that night at a boutique hotel. Melissa had done her research. In Illinois, knowingly transmitting HIV was a Class 2 felony. She needed proof that he initiated it all, that she had no intent to harm. At first, she told him early in their employment relationship that she did not date married men due to religious beliefs. She had documentation of his harassment and coercion. Most importantly, she had proof she tried to quit rather than submit to his advances. Later, lying awake in the hotel bed, she watched him sleep. Pastor Jerome Mitchell, pillar of the community, serial adulterer, about to learn the hardest lesson of his life. Back in her apartment, she wrote in her journal. Day 1 of the plan. Evidence secured. Hotel receipt, voice recordings, text messages. He never asked about protection, never asked about my sexual health, just took what he wanted, like he always does. Over the next few weeks, a pattern emerged. Tuesday and Thursday evenings were counseling sessions. Sunday afternoons were ministry planning. His wife Diane's real estate work kept her traveling frequently. Melissa played her role perfectly. The reluctant church girl who had finally given in to temptation. She let him think he was corrupting her while she documented everything. At church, they maintained professional distance, but she noticed things now. How his eyes landed on other young women, the private counseling sessions with single mothers, the way he used spiritual manipulation to control people. God has blessed me with discernment about you, he would tell her in private. This is his plan for us. She thought of the other women who must have heard the same lines over the years. June came with complications. Diane Mitchell started spending more time at church, watching her husband with suspicious eyes. Rumors spread about why Melissa had really returned to work. One Sunday, Diane cornered her in the ladies' room. I've seen how he looks at you. Melissa's heart raced. Mrs. Mitchell, I save it. Diane cut in. You're not the first. Just know this, out half of what he has. I'm not going anywhere. That night, Melissa called her cousin Rachel, a nurse who knew her status. I'm in too deep. You need to stop this madness, Rachel urged. He's not worth destroying your life. He's already tried to destroy my life. Melissa snapped. He tried to force me into this. Now he needs to learn. Actions have consequences. Meanwhile, Pastor Mitchell grew bolder, calling late at night, sending explicit texts, demanding more of her time. My wife is going to the AC conference next week, he told her after a Wednesday Bible study. Come to the house. Your house? Isn't that risky? I want you in my bed. I'm tired of hotels. Melissa felt sick but saw an opportunity. What about pictures? Security cameras. Disabled them myself. No one will know. She saved the text. The next day, she had lunch with her mother, who was recovering from cancer. Baby, you seem troubled lately. Talk to me. Melissa forced a smile. Just work stress, Mama. Everything's fine. But nothing was fine. The weight of her revenge plan was crushing her spirit. Every time she considered stopping, she remembered his threats, his entitlement, his abusive power. God works in mysterious ways, Pastor Mitchell liked to say. He did indeed. The summer heat matched the intensity of the affair. Pastor Mitchell grew increasingly reckless, taking risks that made Melissa's evidence gathering easier. His ego convinced him he was untouchable. Their first time at the house felt surreal. Melissa sat in her car outside the elegant Kenwood mansion, recording a timestamp on her phone, July 12, 2021, 8:45 p.m. Entering Pastor Mitchell's residence at his insistence. All security cameras are confirmed disabled. The master bedroom felt like a violation. Family photos on the walls. Diane's robe hanging in the bathroom, her perfume on the dresser. Pastor Mitchell didn't seem to notice or care. Afterward, lying in his wife's bed, Melissa asked cautiously, "Aren't you worried about diseases and stuff?" He laughed. "I'm a man of God. He protects his chosen ones." She documented that statement as well. By August, Melissa noticed the first signs. Pastor Mitchell complained of fatigue during their encounters. Night sweats left his sheets damp. A persistent low fever made him irritable. "Must be that summer flu going around," he said. popping Tylenol. She watched him deteriorate with clinical detachment, recording every symptom. Swollen lymph nodes he blamed on stress, body aches dismissed as gym soreness, low-grade fever attributed to Chicago's heat wave, night sweats he linked to bad dreams, weight loss he celebrated as a successful diet. During this time, his demands intensified. The power dynamic shifted as his health declined. He needed her more, trusted her more. She became his confidant, the keeper of his secrets. "Sometimes I think you're only one who really knows me," he told her one night. If only he knew. At church, subtle changes appeared. His dynamic sermons became shorter. He took more breaks, drank more water. The congregation whispered about his gaunt appearance. "Pastor's working too hard. That new diet is too extreme. He needs a vacation." Diane noticed too. Melissa overheard them in his office. "Jerome, something's wrong. You need to see her." "Doctor, I'm fine, woman. Stop nagging." But he wasn't fine. In September, the symptoms were undeniable. During one of their hotel meetings, he could barely perform. His body racked with chills. "Maybe we should take you to the ER," Melissa suggested, maintaining a professional facade. But inside, she felt hollow. The weight of her actions haunted her during Sunday services, during their intimate moments, during quiet nights alone with her thoughts. She attended HIV support group meetings, sharing carefully edited versions of her story. "I'm watching someone experience what I went through, but I can't help them." The group leader, an older woman named Miss Clara, seemed to see right through her. "Revenge might feel sweet at first, baby, but it poisons the soul." September sounded broken. The private room at Northwestern Memorial Hospital felt small despite its luxurious accommodations. Pastor Mitchell sat on the edge of his bed in a designer robe. Medical charts scattered around him, his usual commanding presence crumbled. "HIV positive," he said, voice hollow. "How is this possible?" Melissa maintained her practiced look of shock. "What? No, there must be a mistake. 3 tests all positive, plus pneumonia starting in my lungs." His hands shook as he held the lab results. Suspicion followed immediately. Then how? She watched the wheels turn in his mind as he mentally scrolled through other possibilities. Other women. Because of course there were other women. That night, Diane came to the hospital. Melissa listened outside the private room. "What do you mean, Harvey Jerome? I have been faithful for 20 years. Diane, please. Don't you dare lie to me, not now." "How many were there?" "I don't." "How many?" The argument continued until security asked Diane to lower her voice. "I was gathering evidence for divorce court. Now I'm gathering it for criminal court because someone gave my husband HIV, and when I find out who." She let the threat hang. After Diane left, Melissa sat in her car shaking. This wasn't part of the plan. Private investigators meant photos, surveillance, evidence that could implicate her. She called Rachel. "The wife knows about the affair, has proof." "Jesus, Mel, this is getting dangerous." "It was always dangerous, but now you need a lawyer." "When I'm spreading rumors." Local news vans camped outside New Life Baptist. Melissa maintained her routine, playing the concerned secretary. She attended staff meetings where they discussed the pastor's health challenges, helped draft careful statements about him taking time to rest and recuperate. But inside, storms raged. Every cough, every wince of Pastor Mitchell's pain pricked her conscience. She watched him struggle with medication side effects. She knew exactly what he was feeling. One night, he called, his throat hurt. The first newspaper headline hit like a bomb. Prominent Southside pastor steps down amid health and scandal rumors. The Chicago Defender's article was cautious, citing unnamed sources claiming Pastor Mitchell had HIV and multiple affairs. The comments section exploded with speculation and judgment. More coverage followed. Megachurch in crisis, pastor's illness raises questions. Diane Mitchell files for divorce. Cites irreconcilable differences. New Life Baptist attendance plummets. For years, Jerome got sloppy. Lipstick stains, late nights. Mysterious accusations, Diane later said. But I built this life with him. Leaving everything we'd worked for. And now someone tried to kill him with HIV. That changes things. Williams, her private investigator, reviewed the files. Their surveillance photos showed Pastor Mitchell with multiple women over 6 months. But Melissa appeared most frequently. Next, he interviewed church staff. The pattern became clear. Young, attractive women hired as assistants who refused to talk. But Melissa stood out. She was the only one who returned after leaving. The only one present during the HIV diagnosis. The only one still working closely with Pastor Mitchell. Williams requested her employment records. The pattern was suspicious. Hired January 2021, resigned April 2021, rehired May 2021 as special assistant, salary doubled after rehiring. He interviewed her at the station. Miss Jackson, why did you return to work for Pastor Mitchell after resigning? Melissa called her newly hired lawyer, Vernon Walsh, who ended the interview. Outside, Williams told his partner, she's hiding something, but so is everyone else in this mess. The investigation expanded. Williams subpoenaed phone records, hotel receipts, church financial documents, medical records, surveillance footage. A pattern emerged through bank statements. Regular cash withdrawals by Pastor Mitchell. Payments to various women coded as ministry support. A secret account funding hotel room and gifts. But the HIV eventually acted. The team voted to remove him as senior pastor. The announcement sparked protests from his remaining supporters. Pastor Mitchell needs prayer, not punishment. Judge not, lest you be judged. The devil is attacking our church. But others celebrated. About time someone stopped him. How many lives did he destroy? God doesn't like ugly. A breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Rachel, Melissa's cousin, couldn't live with the guilt anymore. She walked into Detective Williams' office early one day. Put this on record. Start from the beginning. Rachel detailed conversations spanning months. Melissa's initial harassment complaints, the forced resignation, the revenge plan, the deliberate initiation of the affairs, the documented symptoms. She kept journals, Rachel added. Everything written down. Dates, times, symptoms. She wanted proof it came from her. After Rachel left, Williams called the DA's office. This was now a clear case of aggravated assault with intent to transmit HIV, a Class 2 felony carrying 3 to 7 years. May 3, 2021, her journal read. Started the plan today. He is so eager, so careless, never even asked for protection. His arrogance will be his downfall. July 2021, first symptoms show. He's too proud to see a doctor. Just like I was too ashamed when it happened to me. September 28, 2020. Diagnosis confirmed. He cried like a baby. Where was this humanity when he was destroying other women's lives? Williams set up surveillance on Melissa. She seemed to sense the net tightening. Changed her routine. Then a former victim of Pastor Mitchell came forward. Melissa told me her plan last spring. I didn't stop her. Maybe that makes me guilty too, but after what he did to me, to all of us, I understood. Did she specifically mention infecting him? She said, he thinks HIV is punishment for sin. Let's test that theory. The DA's office prepared charges. The evidence was substantial. Rachel's testimony, the journal's medical records, surveillance photos, witness statements, recorded conversations. But the case waited. After Sunday service, waiting until she left the church grounds to avoid a scene, Detective Williams approached her in the parking lot. Melissa Jackson, you are under arrest for aggravated assault with intent to transmit HIV. She didn't resist, just smiled sadly and said, I wondered when you'd figure it out. The charges were formal: 1-count aggravated assault, Class 2 felony, 1-count criminal transmission of HIV, 1-count reckless conduct. Bail was set at $150,000. The church paid it anonymously. She documented her intentions, tracked his symptoms. This was calculated biological assault. Walsh countered, my client was sexually harassed, caused and threatened by a man who abused his power. If transmission occurred, it was during acts he initiated through corruption of authority. The judge set a trial date for March 2022. Meanwhile, civil suits multiplied. Diane Mitchell sued Melissa for alienation of affection. Church members filed a class action over exposure risk. Former victims sued Mitchell. Or had he already been positive, infecting her and others? DNA testing of the virus could confirm transmission direction, but samples from 2017 were not available. The scientific evidence was inconclusive. Pastor Mitchell's health stabilized with proper treatment. He held a press conference. "I admit my sins. I failed as a husband, pastor, and man of God, but I never intended to harm anyone. What Sister Jackson did was calculated evil." Melissa's support group rallied around her. Miss Clara tried to exclude past sexual harassment claims. Church politics. Diane Mitchell's private investigator found other victims, HIV status. The judge allowed most of the evidence, ruling the pattern of behavior was relevant to state of mind. As the trial approached, both sides felt the weight of what was at stake. This wasn't just about HIV transmission anymore. It was about power, justice, revenge, and redemption. The trial opened on a cold Chicago morning. News vans lined South Martin Luther King Drive. Protests. One fought back. He called it a crime, but you'll hear how. He infected others long before Melissa Jackson entered his life. The prosecution's case seemed strong. Rachel's testimony about Melissa's plan, the detailed journals, medical records, surveillance photos, taped conversations. But cross-examination revealed perplexities. Rachel cracked under questioning. "Did your cousin explicitly say she intended to infect Pastor Mitchell?" "Not exactly. She said he needed to understand the consequences." Another victim's 2020 experience echoed this. "After my diagnosis, he said I must have gotten it from someone else, called me a Jezebel, threatened to expose me if I talked." The prosecution's timeline unraveled. If Mitchell infected others in 2019 and 2020, he couldn't have gotten HIV from Melissa in 2021. Diane Mitchell's testimony proved unexpectedly helpful to the defense. Jerome had symptoms before Melissa came back to work. Night sweats, weight loss. "I thought it was stress." He rejected the doctor's intent, without clear evidence of transmission, weakened the case. Then came the church documents. Years of complaints, payoffs, and cover-ups. Deacon board minutes showed they knew about HIV exposures but kept quiet to protect the ministry. The jury deliberated for 4 days. The verdict: not guilty on all counts. The judge addressed Melissa. "While your actions showed poor judgment, the evidence does not support criminal charges. This case highlights the complexity of power, abuse, and retribution in our society." Her final journal entry read, "The truth is messy. We were all victims and villains. He destroyed lives with his abuse. I wanted revenge but found only emptiness. May God forgive us all." Miss Clara's words proved prophetic. Revenge had poisoned everyone she touched. The story became a cautionary tale about power, sexuality, and accountability in religious spaces. But for those involved, it was about human frailty. The capacity for both cruelty and compassion, destruction and redemption.